The moonlight filtered through the half-open curtains, casting eerie patterns across the hardwood floor. The clock struck 3:07 a.m. Silence hung thick in the air, except for the heavy breathing of someone who had just realized the weight of their words. Last night was not just another night. It was the night they said something they can never take back, and it's been haunting them ever since. You see, people often speak in anger, but not everyone realizes that words have a soul of their own. Once released, they become seeds, some blossom, but others rot and infect everything they touch. And last night, in a room dimly lit by pride and resentment, someone close to you chose to speak poison. They didn't mean to, or maybe, just maybe, they did. They didn't expect the silence afterward to be louder than the shouting. They didn't expect their own conscience to become their cellmate. But now they do, because last night was heavy. And this morning? This morning came with trembling hands, teary eyes, and a mind racing with regret. They were pacing their room, heart pounding like war drums in their chest. Shadows clung to the walls. The room felt smaller than usual, as if even the walls were judging them. Sleep had abandoned them entirely. Each time they tried to close their eyes, they saw your face, the hurt, the shock, the stillness. You had simply walked away. No shouting, no fighting back, just silence. And that's what scared them the most, because they realized it's not the ones who scream that are dangerous, it's the ones who go silent. You were silent, and now they can't escape the echo of their own voice, ringing back at them, reminding them of what they've done. The night had started like any other, a minor disagreement, a petty annoyance. They'd been feeling on edge lately. Life hadn't been kind to them, and instead of confronting their own storm, they decided to unleash it on you. One moment you were discussing something trivial, maybe dinner plans, maybe a missed call, maybe something deeper. The next moment, the storm broke. Words flew, accusations, dismissals, and then that one line, that one sentence, that vile venom-laced sentence that sliced through the air like a dagger. You were never enough anyway. And just like that, the world shifted. You didn't shout. You didn't cry. You didn't even blink. You just turned around and left the room. And the silence that followed was louder than 1,000 screams. They stood there, stunned, still wrapped in their own pride, believing for a moment they'd won the argument. But now they realize they lost you, and it's eating them alive. Regret is a strange thing. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, in the middle of the night, while you're staring at the ceiling. It creeps into your dreams, your meals, your breath. It sits beside you, invisible but ever present. And that's what your person is going through right now. They can't concentrate. They can't rest. Because all they can see is you walking away. And deep down they know they didn't just hurt you. They failed you. They failed your trust, your loyalty, your patience, all of which you gave them in silence, in faith, in love. And they shattered it in a moment of fury. You see, anger doesn't reveal the truth. It reveals what's unhealed. And last night, their wounds spoke louder than their wisdom. They didn't hate you. They hated themselves for not being better, for not being healed, for not being able to handle love that pure without sabotaging it. You represented something rare, something real, and they mistook it for weakness until you walked away. And now they sit whispering prayers they don't even believe in, hoping somehow God would turn back the time, undo the moment, unsay the words. But time doesn't work like that. Neither does love. That's why this morning, they typed a message and deleted it. Again and again. The words, "I'm sorry," felt too small, too weak, too late. They're afraid now, not just of losing you, but of what your absence means. It means they'll have to face themselves. And they're not sure they're ready for that. Because with you gone, they can no longer pretend. They can no longer hide behind arguments and noise. They're left with silence. And in that silence, truth is louder than ever. They remember the look in your eyes when you first met. They remember how you stayed by their side when everyone else left, how you forgave the unforgivable, how you understood them even when they couldn't understand themselves. And yet, last night, They chose to cut where you had always healed. Why? Because sometimes people push away what they think they don't deserve. And last night, they tried to push you away before you could leave them first. They didn't expect you to actually go. Now they're staring at the door you closed, praying you'll open again. But maybe, just maybe, this time, God let you walk away to teach them a lesson they couldn't learn any other way. Maybe this is the fire they needed to see the truth, not about you, but about themselves. Because the real message here isn't about anger. It's about awakening. You were sent into their life not to fill a void, but to reveal it. Not to be their healer, but their mirror. And last night, they finally saw the cracks in their own soul, reflected in the silence you left behind. Now they asked themselves, why did they say it? Why didn't they stop? Why couldn't they see your value before you disappeared? And the answer? Because some people only appreciate the light after they've been left in the dark. That's where they are now, in the dark, searching for you, yearning for another chance. But the truth? It's not just about what they lost. It's about what they're becoming now that you're gone. Because growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in chaos, in heartbreak, in those long, lonely nights when your heart screams and no one answers. That's where they are now, wrestling with God, asking for mercy, asking for you. But maybe this time they'll have to find themselves before they find you again. Maybe this time they'll have to prove they're worthy of the love they once took for granted. And maybe, just maybe, God is using this pain not to punish them, but to prepare them. The story doesn't end here. This was just a crack in their ego, the break in their armor. Now comes the real test. Will they wake up? Will they grow? Will they rise from this guilt, this weight, this night that broke them? Or will they stay lost in the echo of their own anger? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. Last night was heavy, because truth always is. And now they must carry it, until they're ready to finally speak the words that matter. Not in anger, but in truth. The sun rose, but it didn't bring peace. It only brought light to the mess they had made. A mess that couldn't be cleaned with an apology or swept under the rug with excuses. The weight of their words had not faded with the night. In fact, it had grown heavier, more suffocating. Because in that moment of anger, they didn't just lash out. They broke something sacred. Trust. And now, the silence that followed wasn't just your absence. It was God's answer. Not punishment, but reflection. They sat in their room, hands clenched tightly together like a child praying not to be punished. They hadn't picked up their phone. They hadn't spoken to anyone, not because they were stubborn, but because they knew they were wrong. They knew they went too far. But even deeper than that, they were afraid. Afraid that if they reached out, they'd hear the one thing they couldn't bear. That you were done. That this time, your silence wasn't just space, it was goodbye. And so, instead of reaching out to you, they reached out to God. With tears, not pride. With guilt, not anger. Why did I say that? They whispered into their pillow, over and over again like a chant of remorse. I didn't mean it. I swear I didn't mean it. But they did. In that flash of fury, they meant every syllable. That's the part that scared them the most. Because in their darkest place, those words existed. You were never enough anyway. That sentence had claws, and it ripped through your soul. Now, it's tearing through theirs. But here's the twist, the truth that's starting to dawn on them now. That night wasn't a mistake. It was a mirror. And for the first time, they were forced to look at themselves, not the version they showed the world, not the mask they wore for approval, but the real version, the broken one, the wounded one, the version of them that bleeds on the people who never hurt them, the version of them that took your love and turned it into a battlefield. And now they understand. It wasn't you who wasn't enough. It was them. Because you loved with patience. You stood with grace. You forgave without question. But every time you gave, they chipped away at that love. Why? Because they didn't believe they deserved it. And when people think they're unworthy of something good, they'll do anything, everything, to destroy it before it leaves them. They were waiting for you to give up, to leave. But you didn't. You stayed. And that scared them more than anything. So instead, they pushed you, and they pushed. And when you still didn't walk away, they used the last weapon they had, words. But now they're learning. Words are not weapons. They are mirrors. They reflect what's broken inside us. And there's reflected shame, guilt, insecurity. It wasn't your fault. It never was. But you became the target anyway. And that's why this regret hurts even deeper. Because it wasn't an argument. It was a revelation, a breaking point, when they can't take back. So now they're writing letters they may never send. They're standing in the shower longer, not to clean their body, but to cleanse the pain that clings to their chest. They're waking up in cold sweats, haunted by the look in your eyes when they said it, because it wasn't anger they saw. It was heartbreak. It was disappointment. It was a silent scream of a soul that's been wounded too many times. And that's the scream that still echoes in their ears. But here's what you don't see. They've started changing. Quietly, privately. They're starting to reflect on how they got here. How someone as beautiful and pure as you ended up as collateral damage in their war with themselves. They're trying to fix what's broken, not to win you back, but to become someone who would have deserved you in the first place. They're not asking for another chance yet. They don't dare, because even they don't know if they're worthy of it. Not yet, but they hope. Oh, they hope. With every breath, with every prayer. They hope that one day, when they're finally healed, they'll be able to stand before you, not with apologies, but with proof. Proof that they've grown, that the person who shattered you no longer exists, that the fire of regret became the flame of transformation, because sometimes the deepest guilt becomes the strongest fuel. You see, this story isn't about blame. It's about breakthrough. It's not about who hurt who. It's about what happens after pain. And God is watching. He saw the moment you walked away without hate in your eyes. He saw how you didn't wish them pain. You wished them healing. And that's why now they're healing. Because your silence was a revenge. It was a message, one louder than any shout could ever be. Sometimes God uses heartbreak to break illusions, to shatter the fake comfort of toxic love, to wake people up to the treasure they were blind to. And that's what's happening now. They're awake, and every day feels like a lifetime without you, but also a lifetime of lessons, because now they know love is not about ego. It's not about power. It's about presence. And they threw yours away like it was disposable. Now, they'd trade anything just to hear your voice again, even for a moment. They're asking God for one more chance, one more opportunity to hold your hand, not to control, but to cherish. To speak not from anger, but from understanding. Not to win arguments, but to win your peace. And if they ever get that chance, they won't waste it. Because they've tasted life without you. And it's flavorless, lifeless, colorless. But maybe, just maybe, you needed to leave for them to learn how to stay. You needed to go silent so they could hear themselves clearly. You needed a break so they could finally begin to build. Not just themselves, but the kind of love that doesn't need to scream to be strong. That doesn't wound to feel worthy. That doesn't fear losing, because it finally knows how to hold on the right way. So wherever you are, know this. Your absence is not in vain. Your silence is not wasted. It's healing someone in ways even they never thought possible. And while they sit under the weight of their regret, they are transforming, not for you, but because of you, because your love left an imprint, a divine fingerprint that no one else can match. And someday, whether in this lifetime or the next, they will find you again. And this time, they'll be ready, not with promises, but with proof that love can rise from the ashes, and that even the heaviest night can lead to the most beautiful morning.